entirely uncalled for. So I got the impression of a totally unreasonable and impossible man, Amby stated, her voice clear and strong. In the barracks, Carter groaned softly, burying his face in his hands. I see, Johnny said, preparing to wrap up the segment with a neat little bow of controversy. However, Ampy continued, holding up a delicate finger. Later I did have a talk with Gomer, and he pointed out some things to me that I had not realized before. You see, I was judging things from a civilian point of view, and then Gomer pointed out that no matter how Sergeant Carter screams or yells, it is only to make him a better Marine. The entire barracks fell dead silent. Carter slowly lowered his hands, staring at the screen in absolute disbelief. You mean Gomer does not mind the screaming and yelling? Johnny asked, visibly taken aback by the sudden change in narrative direction. No, avens no. He is used to it, Amby chuckled warmly. He says whenever Sergeant Carter makes a move sand piles or do push-ups, it is only to help him to remember not to do the same wrong thing twice. Well, your Gomer certainly seems to have changed your mind for you, Johnny laughed nervously, realizing his scandalous scoop had just transformed into a heartwarming military tribute. Well, apparently Sergeant Carter has to do what he is doing. Otherwise, he would end up with a platoon full of knuckleheads. Amby smiled brilliantly, echoing the sergeant's exact phrasing with charming innocence. The barracks erupted into cheers. The men clapped and whistled. Hey, Sergeant, she made a hero out of you, Boyle laughed, slapping Carter on the shoulder. Carter puffed out his chest, a massive, genuine smile finally spreading across his tough face. Bless her heart. I knew she would change her mind once she had a chance to think about it. Civilians have a lot to learn about the military, he declared proudly, wiping a tiny, invisible tear of sheer relief from his eye. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The men laughed, celebrating their tough but suddenly beloved sergeant. The next morning, the air in the company administrative office was light, fresh, and filled with the triumphant aura of a career saved. Sergeant Carter sat behind his heavy wooden desk, feeling like a conquering general. Well, a new day, a new world, huh, Sergeant? To think yesterday you were afraid of losing your stripes. Corporal Boyle teased playfully as he sorted some morning reports. Afraid? I was not afraid, Carter scoffed, leaning back in his creaky leather chair. No, terrified but not afraid, Boyle joked, before Carter could issue a sharp retort. A gentle knock rapped against the open doorframe. Sergeant Carter? Carter looked up to see Private Gomer-Pyle standing there, accompanied by the lovely, heroic figure of Miss B. Taylor. Pyle. Hello, Miss Taylor. Hello, Sergeant Carter. Aunt B is fixing to leave, and she did not want to leave without saying goodbye to you. Gomer smiled brightly. Well, that is very nice of you, Miss Taylor. And by the way, I would like to thank you for what you said about me last night, Carter said, standing up out of genuine respect. You were real good, and you look great, too. You know, you are very photogenic on television. Really? Oh, well, thank you very much, Amby blushed, smoothing her skirt. Well, anyway, my bus will be leaving shortly, and I wanted to say it has been a pleasure to meet you, and I hope we will meet again sometime. Likewise, Carter nodded, extending his hand. Ampy shook it warmly, then let her gaze drift around the cramped, strictly functional space of the military office. Oh, so this is where you do your work, Yeah, this is where the brain work is done. Boyle? Carter laughed heartily. Right, Sergeant, Boyle agreed. Ampy stepped closer to the glass panes, looking out onto the parade ground. Oh, when was the last time those windows were cleaned? Carter blinked, caught off guard. Why, what is the matter with them? Well, they look awfully grimy. You know, I got an hour and a half before my bus leaves, she observed, clicking her tongue disapprovingly. Gomer immediately sprang into action. Aunt B, do you want to get you some vinegar? Why do you not go with me? She suggested, turning toward the door. Vinegar? Why would anybody want? Carter started to ask, thoroughly confused by the sudden turn of events. Boy, if you want to see wind or shine, you just let Ampy show you what she can do with vinegar, Gomer proudly announced, heading for the hallway. Now, wait a minute. According to regulations, no civilian is supposed to. Carter began to protest, his strict military protocols clashing once again with the unstoppable force of Mayberry domesticity. You know, I do not understand why the Marines will not pay a few extra dollars and have a woman come in once or twice a week, Ampy stated, shaking her head as she marched out the door, fully intending to scrub down the entire United States military base if they let her. Run along, Gomer, she called out. Come in here and work half a day here, and the next day we will be married. Sergeant Carter stood completely frozen behind his desk, watching the lovely, terrifying woman leave his office, utterly powerless to stop the impending wave of vinegar and cleanliness that was about to wash over his beloved company. He looked at Boyle. Boyle looked at him, and they both burst into loud, joyous laughter. The military had survived 200 years of wars, battles, and conflicts, but it had never quite faced an opponent as fiercely loving and aggressively helpful as Ampy from Mayberry. Copyright BF Watch TV 2021. The afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow over the United States Marine Corps base at Camp Henderson. It was a peaceful Sunday, a day when the usual rigorous marching and shouted commands gave way to a rare, quiet stillness. Most of the men were out on pass, enjoying a well-deserved break in a nearby town. For Private First Class Gomer-Pyle, however, the day held a different kind of purpose. He had volunteered for barracks duty, a task he approached with the same earnest dedication he applied to every aspect of his military life. Down in the recreation room, a fellow Marine leaned to the doorway and called out to him. He mentioned that Gomer had a visitor waiting. Gomer paused, his brow furrowing in mild confusion. A visitor? To see him? The messenger added with a chuckle that Gomer should not get too excited, as the lady waiting for him was distinctly the motherly type. Gomer wondered aloud who that could possibly be. He wiped his hands on his trousers and made his way to the front area. As he turned the corner, his eyes widened in absolute delight. Standing there, radiating the familiar, comforting warmth of his hometown of Mayberry, was none other than Aunt Bee. Gomer called out her name, his voice echoing with pure joy. Aunt Bee turned, her eyes lighting up as she took in the sight of the young man before her. She clasped her hands together, marveling at the transformation. She told him that she would not have recognized him if she had passed him on the street. It was true, she insisted. He was a completely different person. When he had left Mayberry, she recalled he had been a frail, scrawny young man. But standing before her in his pristine uniform, he looked strong, confident, and genuinely handsome. Gomer blushed, his trademark humility shining through. He assured her that he was still the same old Gomer. He complimented her in return, telling her she looked mighty good herself, and expressed how wonderful it was to see a familiar face from home. They sat down together on a comfortable sofa, and Gomer eagerly asked when the world had brought her all the way to California. Ampy smiled, arranging her purse neatly on her lap. She explained that she was on her way to Fresno. She asked if Gomer remembered her little niece, Judy May Olander. Gomer nodded enthusiastically. Ampy proudly shared that Judy May was getting married, and to a very good catch, too. The young fellow was a butcher down at the supermarket. She noted that people in that profession made good money, and more importantly, he was supposed to be a lovely and kind person. Gomer smiled warmly, saying that was exceptionally nice news. Ampy confessed that at first, she had not planned to make the trip, but Andy had absolutely insisted. He had told her that she desperately needed a vacation from her endless household chores back in Mayberry. Deciding to embrace the opportunity, she chose to turn the journey into a real vacation, making sure to stop and visit Gomer along the way. Gomer beamed, telling her he was incredibly glad she had made the detour. He peppered her with questions about everyone back home, asking after Andy, young Opie, and the entire Mayberry gang.